So I just want to start officially for the recording and everyone here to say welcome to our first community call of Regenerate Barichara. Some of you will know that we've had a website called Regenerate Barichara since 2022. You probably don't know that I took that site down about a month ago. I stopped paying for the hosting of it. And we're in a big transition process anyway, and websites are mostly becoming kind of useless. And just like social media, because of the manipulation of algorithms, is mostly useless. I have 18,000 followers on LinkedIn, and most of my posts get less than 100 impressions because my content is deeply suppressed. So like social media doesn't work, and emails largely don't work, and newsletters don't work. And, welcome to the complete control of the technocracy to be sure that social movements don't happen. But part of the inquiry that led to creating this space is a blend of two things. One, the Mighty Networks platform introduced a new architectural update where you can have limited access membership plans, where you have access to limited spaces, which means we've been able to open up a whole bunch of place-based hubs where our members host different spaces, and those spaces are free and open to the public, whereas the design school that we host has membership dues that people pay to join all of the spaces of the design school. And that means that we can do independent, parallel, and decentralized organizing. And I think as of right now, we have about 20 active place-based hubs in the design school, and more that are rolling out because we started this in the beginning of October. And during that time, I realized, wait, why don't we just create one for Barichara? This might be a good way to organize, because we already pay for this platform that we can make available to our members that has all of the features of online courses, which means we can host events, and we can post content, and we can engage in discussion, and we can send messages to the members, which is a way of doing a version of newsletters, because it sends a message to the email of everyone to their member profile. It's basically an organizing tool. And because social media is no longer a good organizing tool, then I just thought I'd try it out and see how it goes. Would this be a better way to organize? So for example, if we have someone that donates into the Barichara Education Fund, we just invite them to join this platform, and then they would be kept up to date on what we're doing by any articles we write or videos we do, or they could attend live meetings like this one. And we just have all these nice features for donor relationships, if that's part of what we're doing. But then also, several of you have actually come to Barichara for an immersion we hosted last year. What if we're organizing other live gatherings? We would want anyone who comes to a live gathering to be able to have a shared online space to keep up with what's going on and to know about future live gatherings. And so you start to see that having this Mighty Networks platform for Regenerate Barichara is actually really useful. And some of you I know are hosting other place-based hubs, so we can also learn from each other. Like, is there some good stuff we're doing over here you might do over there, and vice versa? Like, I know Karen is doing a lot of work along the Milwaukee River in the western part of the Great Lakes. So these kinds of organizing that we can do together also play into that level. And today is really just establishing a basic sense of what kind of community is this. And so partly it's to share with you what I just shared, that there's a motivation to use this platform, and that we have a lot of things going on. And because we have a lot of things going on, it could really become overwhelming if I posted all of it into the design school. Just flood Barichara content into the design school, where those of you in the design school know we're already being flooded by everyone's content. And I think that's overall positive. Like, look at this thing that's happening in Wisconsin, this thing that's happening in Ontario, this thing that's happening in France, this thing that's happening in Tunisia. That's like awesome and already overwhelming in a way. If you actually go on the platform a lot, it will just confuse you. And then there's this fragmentation that's happening because these place-based hubs are not visible except to the members of each place-based hub. And so you don't know what's going on in the hub for Southern France unless you're in it, or unless that hub publishes into our bioregional learning exchange in the design school. So you can see this would really quickly become a mess without coherent, separate spaces. And Barichara is probably the most complex space related to the design school. We mobilize a lot of money into this landscape. We have a lot of local teams doing local work. We're very open about sharing how difficult and complex it is and trying to help people learn from it. And so I was just like, let's make our own space. And then the idea for today is to share this with you and then for us to start to explore what kind of community do we want to be? Because obviously I have my ideas of what I would want to do with this space. But for all of you who don't live in Barichara, why would you use this space? Or how would it benefit you? And I'll just give one little example of a pattern that I'm finding to be really valuable. And Bree, this totally relates to you and your daughter, is that because we have Sueños del Bosque, we're connecting more and more with collapse-aware families who are thinking about doing something different with their kids. And those people could easily do a world, could come to a world school program that we're hosting in Barichara. And so a very simple thing is our family wants to do something different with our kids. And we followed you on Instagram and we want to know what's going on. Well, you actually could join Regenerate Barichara Hub and learn a lot more about what we're doing. And so I see this as like an on-ramp to deeper engagement. Because when I talk to, an interested mother who's thinking about bringing her 5-year-old to Sueños del Bosque, and she finds out we're doing reforestation work and other things, it's like, wow, I want to learn more about this. My family is asking these questions and you guys seem to be farther along. So I see that Regenerate Barichara could just aggregate concerned collapse-aware families as an example of like how this space could be really valuable and very practical for people. And of course, there's lots of stuff about governance and how we manage funding and how we form teams and what do we do when someone spins out and goes insane with a trauma response and all the stuff, that we talk about in Barichara to try and help people learn what we're doing. And so, yeah, the idea is really this. And what I wanted to do today is go around and have a lot of us know each other, but not everyone knows everyone. So to introduce ourselves here, thinking that this is the Regenerate Barichara community. So let's start to build a basic sense of community. The first question for any community is who's here and why are you here? And then when we listen to each of us, we start to get a sense of the collective purpose of why we're here. Why I'm here, plus why Bree is here, plus why Roberta is here. We start to see what's shared, right? And I just find this really simple activity of an opening circle, tell a little bit about yourself and say why you're here, actually reveals a lot about what here is. And that this will be a worthwhile thing for us to have recorded to share with other people who join the space. In the beginning, this is who was here. And this is why we originally came here. And so I figure that's going to, even with just 9 of us here on the call, that could easily fill time because each of us could speak for a few minutes. So you don't need to be really long and elaborate, but you actually have space to share. And then what we can do is after we go around and each of you shares a little bit about who you are and why you're here, then I can share some of my vision for the next year of this space. And then we can start to dream together. What might we do? And I'm just going to name 2 things as prompts or provocations. One is Roberta, so when my sister died last year and we went back to Missouri, and most of my family is now dead, and my family has held something really significant in the Ozarks, I felt like I need to go back and do regenerative work in the Ozarks, but I don't know how. So just saying there's some connection between our places. And Bree, the way we talked about these learning exchanges between kids in the GTB and kids here and that kind of stuff, just say we should be setting stuff like that up. So that kind of stuff should be happening is what I would say. And so anyway, I've just talked for about 10 minutes, so I think it's a good time for me to shut up and pass it over. And I don't know if maybe I'll pass it to Penny to go first, since Penny, I think everyone here knows, except maybe Alika, that Penny is my partner, and she's right over there. She's in Barichara too. And we're co-founders of the design school. So I'll pass it to Penny, and then we'll pass it around. And the invitation is to introduce yourself and say a little bit about why you joined the Regenerate Barichara Hub and then we'll start to dream together and project for the future. So Penny, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Well, everybody here knows me except I think Lika. But I am, like Joe said, I'm Joe's life partner and also partner in this work. So we're the co-founders of the design school together, but also working here in Barichara together. And yeah, so I'm here because I am part of this work in Barichara, and yeah, I just want to I want to get to know all of you even more deeply and learn how can we really collaborate across our bioregions, across from Barichara into your bioregions. And um, yeah, and Roberta, it's just so good to see you again. Gosh. And yeah, I don't know, looking at Bree's smiling face all the time makes me so happy. So just really glad to be with you all and looking forward to hearing why you're all here. So I think I'll actually pass to Roberta.
Of course. Well, hi, everybody. Penny said hello because I've been part of this before and I visited the projects in Barichara, but I've also been away probably about a year and a half. Um, Not for any reason about this, but just so some big things happening in my life. And then just the work I do personally, just filling it. And it's very hard to like hold both places. My, I'm mostly retired. My background is in environment and conservation and more of a maybe a traditional sense. And since I've retired, I've just been moving a lot more into nature practice and the world of entanglement. And it's very important to me. And the way I put that on the ground locally is through very urban regenerative projects. And this last year, I added studying herbalism and forest shamanism, and I've been asked to help teach forest regeneration. And so I'm winding my way back. I don't know what that means yet because I'm still kind of figuring out how I hold everything and stay healthy and skillful. So, but I'm glad to see you all, and we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Thank you, Roberta. Where are you in the
Oh,
world?
I'm sorry. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. That's why
Okay, good. Oh, yeah, well, thank
Joe
you.
tagged me around the Missouri. We've met up in the Ozarks before, so
And then Roberta, would you like to pass it forward?
sure. I'll pass it to Bree.
Thank you, Roberta. I always feel kindred connections when I hear people are working out on the landscape. I'm calling in from Five Rivers, which is a sacred headwater summit that feeds 5 Great Lakes and Georgian Bay. Um, it's a place that there's a beautiful community of outdoor, regenerative, indigenous connection and weaving that happens here. So I hear that you're doing that where you are. So thanks for sharing that. And it's nice to meet you. And to the layers of love being here. I always feel like I'm in Barichara now that I've had a chance to be there live. I'm listening deeply to the waters there. One thing I missed when I was there was to really have time to hear the waters on a consciousness level that I tend to do when I'm in a new place for me. However, I hear it through your voice, through your work, and the memories and the remembering that you're calling in. As Joe mentioned, there's a layer of connection with the kids. My daughter is now in grade 11 and going to high school for the first real school experience that she's had in a public system. What she does love is playing sports and being in a band. But what she continues to remember is her outdoor education, where she was raised by the Aramosa River and the cedar trees at the headwaters of our biggest river here. She's bringing back a memory for her own sovereignty and water sacredness moving forward around how she knows the landscape. She grew up with kids in the forest with the rivers raising them. And she also grew up regeneratively by driving horses and helping log and tending fields with Sunny, our draft. Like, she's just really remembering that how she is in the world isn't completely attached to how she's living in the world right now in high school. And her dream when she's done high school is to go back to not being in public school systems, and live regeneratively and sovereignly with what flows through her. And in order to activate that and energize that, we're revisiting her next layer of life. She's now a teenager, coming into her own agency around how she wants to walk through the world. But the biggest thing I want to share about the Barichara connection is, well, there's lots of layers. Oh my gosh. We're starting a 22 moon practice here at Five Rivers that is calling in people from all of the bioregions, locally and globally, to sink into watershed practices. It's starting now. Joe and Penny have a call set up with myself next week to revisit what that's going to look like, but it's in motion. Once we have kind of an energized, fluid group of people, we have Indigenous community members offering teaching to create a cohesive container for us to flow forward in, and it really weaves in anyone in bioregional contexts that are ready to sink deeper into water consciousness. And then, to Joe's point, for the kids, big and little, of next generations, regenerative generations, we are energizing a hub here. I just got off the phone with Sarah Featherston. She's going to be filming the 22 Moons practice so that we can activate and honor all Indigenous community teachings and how we enliven this work in our own local and global watersheds, and we'll do this synergistically. So as you can imagine, Barichara being where it is, and with this interesting opposition of water energy, with the lack of, and we have the abundance of, there's a balance. It reminds me of water walking. When you have the men and the women working together, it's like when you have abundance and lack, how do we weave together those cultures and those consciousness so that there ends up being, well, basically we're healing the broken water cycles that we're living in, and how do we do that together with our collective knowledge. And then that last layer is being able to flow through as a hub. There's a couple of land-based spaces that we're looking at right now that want to be acquired as a commons for land trust, land back, water commons consciousness, that then become a flow through community. And I imagine Elise coming with her friends or her sovereignty, and being able to know that there's a sacred place to swim and sauna with Sami support, different people holding sacred headwaters consciousness, so that when we're flowing through to each other's hubs, we are starting to really create that collective water consciousness in ways that not only pertain to who we are, but where the next generation can flow from and flow to. And then the last layer is there's not a gap, but there's something that wants to be called in a new way, where we're activating funding models here to secure some land bases, that we're revisiting all of the work that Barichara has done to do this work already. But there's also some creativity around what we have in mind to do this work. So we know that the Barichara Hub is going to help hold that, because you have experience, wisdom, connection. So I know that was a lot. Thanks, everyone. So excited to hear everyone else's piece of the piece, but so happy to be here. And I feel, how about I pass it on to Megan?
Wow, beautiful, Bree. And hi, everyone. My gosh. I have goosebumps just listening at you. So I am calling in from Cape Town, South Africa, and I think sort of what draws me to this hub is I've had, like, for a long time, quite a sense of wanting to um, spend some time in Latin America, and that I don't know how, um, how what that's going to look like exactly, but very much a sense that there's so much mutual learning between Africa and this sort of south-south weavings. So, and in my own work, I also, I'm in quite an urban sort of peri-urban context. So a lot of the things I'm involved in, like, it's not a small community, so it's like dispersed in many different aspects of regenerative storytelling and a lot of work with local wild indigenous foods and memory and arts-based community health and things like that. And storytelling, of course. And so Emmanuel and I have been collaborating here in the design school, and Story Moss, our sort of storytelling initiative, to try and weave storytelling of the design school and other regenerative spaces. And so that's been loving that very much. And yeah, so I think, and I have an 11-year-old boy. So, so part of my curiosity about, I know that there's such a call to children and intergenerational learning in Barichara. And so, I'm curious to know more about kind of how, like, my son with his, he's always been in our kind of urban context, so he hasn't really had, he's, he's had like always independent kind of alternative education, but not necessarily regenerative. And so like while he spends a lot of time in the bush and in nature and, it doesn't really, he's not really exposed to as much of that as I'd really love him to be, because I'm his mother and he's, he's like, oh, don't come at me with your like spiritual lemon oil stuff. That's what he calls it. So, I'm just really like, I think kind of yearning to find ways where, without kind of forcing things down his throat that he's going to resist against, just exposing him to, some of these ideas and practices and ways of living in community on the ground. And so that's something I'm particularly keen to kind of explore the possibilities of more. Thanks. So I shall pass to Joan.
Thanks, Megan. I think you'll see me laughing hysterically because I can relate so much to resistant sons. I have two boys. One is, their birthdays are coming up, so I have to think about it a bit more. One is turning 26 and the other one's turning 21 tomorrow. So they're past their early school days. So one got I live in along the Grand River in Southern Ontario, and I work really closely with Bree, just so you know. And so I was taking notes because so every time she describes the work, it's slightly different, just richer, more details and so on as she refines the vision. And then I have to try and get it on the website or whatever. And so we're in the process of creating this the Five Rivers Hub. It hasn't materialized yet, but it's like, in that creative world right now. Anyways, my younger son, very much outdoor oriented, even though like both of them came through the traditional school system, which became more cringy as they went along. And I had heaved the biggest sigh of relief when my younger one finally graduated, because you can just see the system is collapsing. And so I'm happy to know that Bree's daughter Shora is almost out of there too. It's just a catastrophe unfolding. Anyways, my younger son he did scouts and was always doing, things on the land. He totally thrived on this camping trip that I thought was just going to be a disaster in January, where it not only was winter here in Turtle Island, but also it rained and it was muddy and cold, and he loved it. Like, I think it just sparked his whole love for the world. And if I tried to talk to him about that, he would probably like, Mom. But anyway, he went on. His biggest job growing up and going through high school was he was a guide, and helped with paddling on the Grand River. So he has just incredible knowledge of our river. As a result, he spent 4 summers doing that. And at the same time, he's in university now, studying computer science. So he's part of this tech, whatever's happening. So why am I here? I'm kind of a sponge. I like to learn, and I'm in helping with Bree. We want to, absolutely have coherence and collaboration. And I just would be remiss if I didn't mention the long relationship I've now had with Karen that's entirely online, but I feel like a sister because we're within the Great Lakes Basin together. We have shared concerns and, just experiences since we both have been in the design school and met so many times. So we host the book club space together, and she joins us in Water Temple, the space that Bree and I are collaborating on. And so I don't know, that's probably enough from me. I'll pass to Karen. Why not?
You are so sweet, Joan. Yes, I feel it too. And I was just thinking this morning about how grateful I am for the friends that I've made here this year, and that I have a friend who sends me like otter videos and muskrat under ice videos, and just the loving kind of bog witch cult that we're building through storytelling and through figuring out how to connect to the watery places around us and the paved over watery places around us, and the ways that that can spark our imagination for what may lie ahead. So I'm Karen. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan. And I do feel like Joan and Bree are like just on the other side of the lake from me, even though it's it's a little bit of a while, but in our collective imaginations. And I have had the opportunity to meet Bree in Barichara earlier this year, but Joan and I have had more of a digital only relationship, although I was able to send her a rock from the which she has with her, which is a token of my appreciation and a coin of the realm in the currency of the Great Lakes here. And so I'm reframing myself as a storyteller and thinking about what that means in terms of raising consciousness and organizing. And I'm connected to like 10,000 different things, and my brain is almost always abuzz with a thousand things happening at one time. And so as I realize that, Joe, I have written down on a card here that a watershed is always coherent to itself. And I think about how by really immersing myself into the Milwaukee River, although I would not want to put my skin in contact with the Milwaukee River just yet, but metaphorically as a bog person, um, immersing myself into my bioregion and thinking about how it is a way of organizing kind of all of the different things that have drawn my attention that start to make more sense to me as I have conversations in these spaces. And so the sense making and the coherence are invaluable to me. I'm an educator. I am a musician. I kind of think of myself as an artist, but I feel like nervous about different types of labels to claim for myself and how they might be weaponized against me. Uh, but I'm feeling pretty safe with storyteller, and I'm feeling legitimized by systems around me and people around me who are also saying, yeah, I think you're pulling it off. I think that's what you're doing. And so I'm organizing in and around Milwaukee and the Great Lakes. To me, why did I show up in this space today? Partly because I fell in love with Barichara and I wanted, see it thrive and watch that story emerge. I I planted something in the garden, and it would be so cool to come back and see a mango tree there, and that would and so like there are these metaphorical and literal seeds in my imagination that have been planted that I feel I'm not tending that. I'm not watering it or weeding or anything, but I know that people are loving that space, so I feel a kind of boson particle connection. This space and having these kinds of conversations in terms of the Barichara Hub that I'm joining, they legitimize the other emerging spaces like the Great Lake Michigan Hub, and they certainly help me figure out what I'm trying to do. Listening to Brian Pupa when he talks about the Great Lakes Basin and being able to see myself nested in that relationship, but also, as has already been mentioned by Bree and others, the way that we're really building networks across, islands of coherence in these chaotic times that are emerging and are attractive to, as you say, the Instagram following and just the way that we're also influencers in our very micro sense of the people literally in my neighborhood, the church that I go to, the community relationship building, networking, all that things, just who I kind of the work of art that is Karen's life as I navigate the world and the choices I make and the things I talk about and the things I'm interested in. I have really been, I hosted an immersion this fall that was different from what I had planned on being for a long time and different from my experience in Barichara, but some of the things that I carry forward through that is the sense of being a visitor, an invited visitor versus being a tourist. And the invitation to Barichara I received as a very an open, as like a relational kind of like you're a guest here. You might be staying in your own hotel room or whatever, but like we're going to make sure you safely get from the airport to here to where you need to go and back again, and that you've got the things that you need and a whole bunch of suggestions and ideas, but also freedom and independence and autonomy and agency and if you want, you can do more, and if you don't want, you can do whatever you want. So also a sense of it being a free city, and I just wrote that down a few minutes ago, but like exploring the idea of spaces that are navigable and through collapse. And I still don't know about flying on airplanes, but the demand, like our heart connections across these distances are going to force us to have technologies that are going to make it so we can visit other continents in a degrowthy, responsible way that uses something other than fossil fuels. I think technologies already exist for like solar planes that can go for 500 miles. and I don't, I don't know, I don't have it all figured out. But anyway, the idea of being a visitor rather than a tourist is really important to me, and I considered Barichara one of many destinations worth visiting in that kind of relationality. I'm hearing even in our sharings just now that about, young people and the hope of young people being able to navigate to spaces where they feel invited to and welcomed. And I want to amplify that. And I read a statistic, I think in this magazine that we get, that 40% of young women in the United States, like almost half of young women in the United States, wish to move somewhere else. And I was thinking of that meaning like, oh, they probably want to move overseas, but some of it will be within the United States too. But, knowing that there is a network of possibilities to people who are, maybe growing up in a place that just doesn't have a lot of hope for them. That feels really important to me as well. And again, I'm just so grateful for the friends that I've made here this year, and looking forward to possibilities. And I would like to call on Emmanuel. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Like, do you want to go first and I go last? Because it's okay, I can go. Nice to meet you, Roberta and Like, and hello, everybody. I am the other Story Most girls with Megan, and I'm calling in from New York City, Lower Hudson Estuary. I am sort of a bee going from one hub to the other, so I don't have my physical hub, but I knew that the school would help me reconnect with Europe and my bioregion, ancestral bioregion of the Mediterranean and Europe in general, and it's worked really well. So my journey in the school is probably a year and a half, and it's really been about being, becoming, and belonging, and it's working really well. And the story weaving, story healing with Megan is making us speak to also people from everywhere around the world and trying to weave their work and their art and their poetry together and sharing it with others. Joe and Penny Barichara Hub, I thought it existed already. I was like, but I was surprised. I was like, no. But I think it's because of my strong interest in weaving and following you social media, Joe, for the last year and a half. I've noticed and learned so much about the weaving that all the stories from Barichara were presented to us, and I was putting them together into my own little hub. So now it's going to be easier that it's there. So yeah, I'm learning a lot. I'm so excited about the hub. I also was lucky to be on a trip in February, and I met amazing people, and it's the place where you learn. So yeah, very excited for that. And I'm going to pass it on to you, Like. You're the last one.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I have been in Barichara in February. I've been doing a cycling trip over there for 8 days from San Gil. I think I started in San Gil, and I was in Barichara for 1 or 2 days. I didn't visit you guys. I thought about it, but in the end, I didn't do it. But I love Colombia. I have been in Colombia from November last year until March this year, and from June this year until July this year. I've been working on photography. That's one of the things that I do. And that's also one of the reasons why I would love to be there and here in this meeting. Yeah, I've been doing quite some projects on photography, on human rights, land rights, indigenous rights, and gender equality versus gender inequality. Been working with quite some organizations in Colombia just as a volunteer, doing some projects. And in the Netherlands, I work as a HR manager, HR project lead, business partner. So I work around 6 to 7 months a year, and I travel the rest of it. I do that since 2017. Yeah, and the reason that I'm in this group is that I really, really like Colombia. I really love Barichara as well. I love the region. Cycling there was quite difficult, but really, really beautiful. And yeah, I think that listening to your stories and the reasons that you're here is, I think, also matching with one of the reasons why I am here, because I also really like storytelling. I think it's really, really important. I just do it with, photography, filming, with yeah, and in an not in another way, but yeah. So that's for me one of the reasons that I'm here, and yeah, I would love to hear and know a little bit more about you as well in the future.
Thank you, Lieke. So now you're in the Netherlands now, right?
Yes, I'm in the Netherlands. Yeah.
And so you work now, actually, and sorry, Joe, visual storytelling is I'm very interested in that. So it's going to
Cool.
become a bigger part of StoryMost. But so are you
Yeah.
on Instagram?
Yes, I
Anyway.
am. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll find you
The
because I did find
photography.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge two things. One was that was a beautiful sharing for us to just see the energy and the emotion and the intimacy and the friendship that already exists, which I think is really beautiful. And the other is, it just struck me as we were starting to share that it's like you're all women here. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And just interesting. So just, it's worthwhile noticing, because people sometimes ask me, so are there any women who lead in the work that you do? And I'm like, it's always 80% or more. It's just in any group that I'm in. So it's just funny how that happens. I saw that again. But I wanted to just respond to some of what was said in a particular way, which is part of how we're thinking about moving forward into the new year, because I think that it will connect to very nicely to everything that's been said. So one thing is, if you've been following what we're doing in Sueños del Bosque, it's getting to be a pretty complex story. As of the day before yesterday, we had 5 community programs that we haven't even put on our website yet. We're just doing them and have restructured and reorganized. And as of yesterday, 6. We added a 6th one. And it's a weaving of things that came before, but restructured and clarified, and some things that are new. Like we have a world school program called La Travesía del Renacer that's happening this week and next week. So my daughter Elise is at La Travesía today, learning how to make indigo blue with natural plant fibers to Keller native textiles. So she's doing a workshop with other children between 7 and 10 years old. And just like how cool that is, that is even possible, let alone that it's so easy in Barichara for us to do. But I see that one of the things that is happening in the larger world that I think that we're all responding to is that at one level, sense making is breaking down. People can't make sense of what's going on, which makes storytelling even more important. Like we have to do really good storytelling to sort of catch people as they fall into confusion and pain and disorientation and conflict. Catch people into a different story. And I think that's super important. And then the other is, where do you go? If your story is broken, like, I'm going to go to college, get a good job, buy a house, pay a mortgage, blah, blah, blah. I have some kind of a story. What if that story doesn't work? Or I'm part of the United States. Oops, fascist technocratic dictatorship. Maybe not the story we want. What do we do when the stories break? Where do we go to make different kinds of choices? And so I think that this is one of the things about the place-based hubs in general. As Penny and I said from the very beginning, when we started the design school, I wrote an article on Medium where I said, we're creating a regenerative school where the landscapes themselves are the classroom. I wrote this like 300-word article. It took me like 5 minutes to write it. It was super simple. It was like, imagine a design school where landscapes are the classroom. And look at us here, like the landscapes are the classroom. We should go to the 5 rivers. We should go to the grassland savannas of the Great Plains or the Ozarks Plateau, or to the Great Lakes, or to etc. So we're actually living that. But then the other part is, how do we show people the power of our theme for last year, which is bioregional learning centers? Why did Donella Meadows tell us that the way to create planetary sustainability is to create a network of place-based bioregional regeneration? She said this in 1983, and that each place should have a bioregional learning center. Well, because you need to have a place to enter to. So when I would describe, what are the features of a bioregional learning center, one of them is you need an entry portal into a bioregion. Where do you arrive? And my mental image is like a reference librarian at a big library. You go into a big library, you go to the reference desk, and the librarian says, so what's your question? And they have this intimate knowledge of the information system. So you ask a question and they say, oh, you want to check out those periodicals? They're on the 3rd floor. They're in that section. And you navigate to where you want to go because there's an expert navigation portal, right? There should be an expert navigation portal. Something that as an expert can say, this is what our bioregion is. So the example in Barichara, I'm really interested in women's circles, plant medicine, and collective trauma. Oh, you need to talk to this group called Korasoma. Right? I'm really interested in agroforestry systems that also build economic models. You should talk to the Centropic Agriculture Collective. Right? And so in Barichara, where we're small enough that we actually could do all of that in one place, at least in theory, that we could show people why every place needs that. Because if I was going to send young people to the 5 rivers, who would they arrive to? Now, obviously, Bree and Joan would be pretty good candidates. But you see, like structurally, where would you, like, whose door do you knock on? And even if, like Karen said, even if you were invited as a guest, okay, so where's the welcome mat? There should be, you should arrive to a welcome mat, something that's been prepared for you. And so the idea of a planetary network of bioregional learning centers is this human relationship between places. And obviously, the human relationship to my own place is where we sort of think, we need our own bioregional learning center. We need to do this for ourselves. But unlike our indigenous ancestors, we are required to be planetary. We have to be planetary. I'm going to give a webinar next Tuesday for all of you who are interested in the Earth Regeneration and Practice series, where I found this incredible documentary about the 5 great forests of Mesoamerica, where all of the migratory birds cross through. And that if we protected these 5 forests between Mexico and Panama, by the way, all of the birds come to Colombia because Colombia is the geophysical gateway to South America. But there are birds that I stood at for example, I was at Blue and Silver Farm, which is a project of Pickering College in the Oak Ridges Moraine in Southern Ontario. I stood there talking to teenagers and pointed at a bird that we see in Barichara and said, that bird visits me in Barichara. I'm representing this transcontinental relationship. And then when Penny and I were visiting a playa in Amarillo, Texas, talking about restoring the Ogallala Aquifer, I saw a bird there that we regularly have in Barichara. And I was like, the birds connect all of us in the Americas. Between North, Central, and South America, there's this huge annual flux of birds. And they touch every one of these big landscapes in North America. They go all the way across the Great Plains, the Highlands, Appalachia, the Great Lakes, like they just touch all of it. And they have to come through the Northern Andes. And here we are building the Northern Andes Regeneration Fund and weaving territories in Colombia, because that's other work that I'm involved in. And then here's Barichara. And so I feel like one of the things that we need to do in the next year is organize a calendar of activities in Barichara that people can come to so they can schedule and plan. So for example, we have this World School program called La Travesía del Renacer. And Joanna, who's an amazing teacher, was going to create the calendar for all of next year, but then she got a really bad viral infection in her optic nerve and spent about a month in excruciating pain trying to recover her eye while she was working with a team to plan the activities that are happening this week and next week. So guess who hasn't put the calendar together yet? So, and I'm like, Joanna, I know we got to sit down at some point and make that calendar, because families are traveling, nomadic families, homeschool families are like, is there anything in March? Is there anything in July? And so to simply have a World School calendar which by the way is a fiction. Because what happens when someone asks, do you have anything in March? I say, no, but actually you can drop in for a week or 2 months. All you need to do is tell us how old your kids are so I know which teacher to connect you with. So our World School program is kind of a facade in a way. It's like we have a real World School program with a real schedule, but actually you could come anytime, except for December and January, because that's our summer break and our teachers need a break. But in general, families, if they ask, we actually accommodate them really easily. But wouldn't it be nice if we had a calendar? And Penny and I we're really excited. We're sort of sitting on a big secret for the learning journey next year. I'll let you in on a little hint. We're going to break our 6-month learning journey into 2 times where we're going to have transnational immersions. One will be in Barichara and the other will be in Tunisia. Look forward to future announcements. And so we want to gather all the people from Europe because, Tunisia is like, you can skip a rock to Sicily, basically. 2-hour flight from Paris. So and Elias, many of you know our beloved Elias in Tunisia. So we're going to organize a gathering in Barichara and a gathering in Tunisia as part of the learning journey. And so we're already starting to create this kind of calendar of, if you wanted to be part of Barichara, you'll know about our upcoming offerings, you'll know the calendar, this stuff is so simple, but if you don't have it, it's really hard. And if you do have it, it just makes all the difference. And so I think of could you imagine a shared annual calendar for the Great Lakes? Now, not for everything, it's too much. Just the 5 Rivers has too much to put on one calendar, let alone a shared calendar with the Great Lakes. But what if there was a Great Lakes calendar? And what I really mean is coordination across the Great Lakes. We have our immersion in Milwaukee in September, and we have ours in the 5 Rivers in March. And you see what I'm saying? Little stuff that is a big deal. And then where do you send your kids? Or if you're like our beloved friend Dave Wolf in Ohio, he's homeschooling his kids. Wouldn't he like to come visit you if he knew when you were doing stuff? So you start to see this is, I think one of the things of the Regenerate Barichara Hub will be to just give the richness of what we're doing. It's so rich, it's so complex that honestly, I know I overwhelm people when I talk about Barichara because I have this complexity of thought, and usually I put a little bit of a filter on it and try and simplify it. But sometimes I just open the fire hose and be like, no, you need to feel how complex this is. Even if you don't have the local context, you can't fully understand it. I'm just going to give you an example of why knowing what's going on is so important. There's a very sacred piece of land called Torreras here in Barichara that we were invited to make a proposal to make it an anchor place for a center for water and biodiversity of our territory. And then it fell through and was offered to someone else, but then it fell through and they came back 2 days ago and asked us if we'd like it. And for us to talk about the politics and the dynamics of, we've already allocated all of our budgets, we have all these projects, we're overwhelmed, we need to raise more money, and then here's an opportunity to work with another very strategic piece of land. What happens in the span of 3 days of trying to just figure that crap out? It's really messy. It's hour by hour changes. By the way, in 2 hours, we're meeting with the Junta Directiva of the association that owns it to negotiate a collaboration that we invented this morning. And so just to feel that energy in a way that's real and that's messy, because by the way, the president of the association is a psychopath. He's not a violent one, but you're dealing with a narcissistic, arrogant person who doesn't listen very well, who's only the president because when we bought a piece of land and money came to the association, he swooped in and kicked the other president out to capture the money. And then we're dealing with that person to make these decisions. And this is the kind of stuff you actually want to know about. Is how do you navigate that, right? Because that's the real work, is the humans, right? So anyway, that's just to say that for me, a big part of what we're doing with the Regenerate Barichara Hub is creating a coherent way for people to be friends of Barichara wherever they are in the world, and for us to invent new mechanisms of exchange. So let's say that we need to raise some money to keep one of our key projects going, and there are networks of people who would become donors or patrons and support us. Well, what would they get in reciprocity with us? Well, they would get personal invitations to private gatherings we'd be hosting here. They'd be getting intimate information of what's going on at whatever level of information they want. Well, we just do that in the Regenerate Barichara space, whether you're a donor or patron or not. But if you are one, you're getting all the information you need. And as we figure out reciprocity relationships, they're always going to be context specific. It's like what we would do to work with youth from South Africa is going to be different from Ontario. That's appropriate. That's what we should do, which means we need personal relationships. And so I think this will be a space where we can be a real community. And there might be someone who joins us because they gave $100,000 to Barichara, and you wouldn't think of them as this like weird, different rich person. They would just be, that's the person that is on our calls that's really nice, that says thoughtful things. And that we're all we're decolonizing the relationships. So that's what I'm sensing as like, we're going to start to create an agenda of some regularity of calls. It might be like a monthly call. It might be a bi-monthly call, but we'll be publishing our schedule and calendars of activities. And I'll be devoting myself to writing more substantive articles. Like if you read the article I wrote on the bioregional learning ecosystem, if I'm writing a quick post on Facebook, I don't put as much thought and time into it. But if I'm wanting to create something that really does explain what we're doing, I want to give it to people who actually are interested in it. So here's going to be a space where people would be actually interested in it. And so you start to see like the richness of what we can do. And I think because we're actually now to the scheduled time of this call is an hour-long schedule, I want to just ask Penny if she has any comments that she'd like to add, and then we can close for today. But I wanted to give Penny a chance to share because Penny and I are so deep in the thick of all of this. Penny, over to you.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people on here are about to go to the PDC call that's starting now. So maybe I'll just be really quick and just say I'm feeling a lot of potential in this group, in this space, and I know there'll be more people joining us. And yeah, especially in this cross collaboration potential. So yeah, I'm feeling love for all of you, and I want you all to be able to go to the PDC call. So I'm going to be quiet now.
Awesome. Thank you, Penny. So I will just bring us to a close because some of you are already jumping off and say, I feel like we achieved the purpose of feeling like who is showing up here. So who is we when we started? And I feel a deep sense that this is going to be a place of friendship. And actually, I was thinking of calling the members of this network Friends of Barichara. So if you're a friend of Barichara, join the Regenerate Barichara Hub and look at us. We're all friends. And Lika, we're going to be good friends. I can tell.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you all.
So thank you, everyone. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.